As you can see, here we have the speeder completely assembled. So now, what we are going to do is to start with the weathering. The first part of the weathering process is typically applying washes. And with the wash, our goal is to highlight all the reliefs and all the cracks of the module. For the washes, I tend to use a combination of both enamels and oil paints. Depending on the model, on what you wish to accomplish, you'll use specific oil or enamel products. I combine them together. Why? Because enamel is much harder, and what the oil product does with it is to soften it. We can work with it better, remove it more easily. So what I'll do is to mix them together. It will be approximately 50% enamel and 50% oil product, and I'll add thinner to it. To get an idea of the consistency of the mixture, more or less, it has to be quite diluted so that it can flow easily through all the cracks and recesses. You'll see what it looks like when I use it. Moreover, we're using thinner. First, we apply the wash, and then with the thinner, we'll clean the excess. Let's see the difference between a washed piece and another without any wash applied to it. Take a look at these two missiles. This one has the wash already applied over it, and this one doesn't yet. It's clear how on one of them you can see all the recesses, they appear darker, unlike on the other one. We'll now apply a simple wash over this piece, and then we'll do the same with the speeder. Let's zoom in a little. The idea is this. We'll need a couple of brushes. I typically use a clean brush to remove the excess, and with another one that has a good tip, we apply the wash. When it comes to the wash, it's good practice to try to stain the piece as little as possible. The less stains, the less you have to clean up afterwards. So we'll start working on the cracks and the lower areas. I'm touching the piece with the brush, and the dark wash will do its job, which is to emphasize all these cracks. All of this is becoming more obvious. And now, for example, let's try with these wings. Do you see how the liquid spreads over the surface? Then we'll let it dry and remove the excess with another brush and clean thinner. The idea here is to mark all the reliefs. Now we'll move on to the front wings and continue with the same procedure. Do you see how I apply the wash with precision, just where I want it to be, so that we don't have to spend much time and effort with the cleanup? Remember that if you stain less, you'll obviously have less to clean. And that's basically it. Now we have to wait for it to dry, and we clean up the excess. Using another brush, we'll apply the wash in the back as well. Although it's black, the wash will also be visible since it's reddish. And afterwards, we'll apply it over the speeder. Now we'll let it dry, and then we'll proceed with the cleaning. We'll apply it over the speeder, and you'll see what it looks like. So let's get to it and continue with the speeder itself. Do you see how it flows all through the cracks? I'm stirring it and applying it to all the details. That's the idea when it comes to washes, to make all the differences in level visible, as well as all the details of the piece. Later, when it's dry, we will clean it up and continue with the work. We will now finish, and then we will leave it to dry and get to cleaning. We can start with the cleaning. To give you an idea, see how it's dirty right now? Well, what we're going to do now is to try to clean up the wash. We'll need some thinner and we'll wet a brush in the thinner and start cleaning. Little by little we are removing the excess, cleaning the brush and the stains that we see. See how easy they are to remove? We need to regularly clean the brush and wet it again so that it's always clean. And like that, little by little, we clean the entire piece. Afterwards, we'll continue with the speeder. As you can see, we have now finished with the wash, and at this point what we need to do is to use a clean brush and remove all the remains that we see from the wash. So, we're cleaning, removing the stains, and drying the brush. When we move it over areas with the wash, we notice that there are some stains, and so what we need to do is to remove the excess and clean away, leaving just the minimum. We do this from panel to panel. Moreover, this way we integrate the decals and all the other effects with the paint. This is why I told you before that the less you stain the model when applying the wash, the easier it will then be to clean it and remove the excess. Okay, and we continue working, touching with the brush all the areas that we washed, in order to remove the stains and remains. And little by little, we are obtaining a clean surface. Later on, we will move on to the next effects. For now, we continue cleaning and then we'll continue the work on the model. Let's clean up this area so that it looks nice. And we continue like this for a while. The next phase of the weathering process will be to create some chipping using the acrylic paints. We will use this color, Spectrum Blue, which is a lighter blue tone, and we will dilute it with some water. You can see that we already have it ready, and now we will use a brush. The brush should be quite thin. The finer the brush, the smaller the chipping effects that we can create with it. You can see that I've already started. And we'll do this on the corners and edges, in the areas that will suffer from rubbing and abrasion. Let's do some here as well. On one of the turrets, we have to be quite precise with the brush. We'll dry it with the paper towel and apply small chipping effects on the edges, in the areas where the chipping would or could typically occur. We can also emphasize some bolts. This will add more contrast to the piece. We always moisten the brush first, then we dry it, and afterwards we start working. It's worth it to start small and then we can join some of them to make them bigger. We'll also do this on the speeder. As you can see, we always pay attention to the edges. The areas that we deem appropriate. And we will continue working like this all over the speeder. Before moving on to the oil paints, we will continue with the acrylics. I've used this pair of colors to create a mixture with the same dilution as for the light chipping. And with this mixture, I have not only made some chipping effects, but as you can see, I have also used it as a kind of wash and created with it longitudinal streaks to accentuate some effects and areas. Let's use this piece and create some small effect. Keep in mind that since we are working with acrylics, it's very important to control the drying. If you don't, this will result in stains. These kind of stains will appear very easily. However, with this kind of wash, as you can see, you will achieve that the piece will have a different appearance than the rest. And without using oil-based products. The acrylics are more difficult to control than the oil paints, but the effect we can create is different. Once again, it's crucial to control the drying in order to avoid stains. After you finish with this effect, we will move on to the oils. But it's interesting to give the piece a little more variety than what we can achieve with the oil paints. As you can see, once dry, the hatch will have a different color. We can also apply it on some edges. We apply it, and then with the brush and some water, we move it towards the spot while drying the area in between, in order to avoid leaving behind any stains. We can apply some kind of wash on some pieces while keeping the drying under control to avoid any unpleasant surprises. We let it dry and then we can move on to the oil paints.